Started renting this house a few weeks ago. It was a nice 2-bed, 1-bath with 2-car garage, sizable driveway. The grass was in good health, and the wooden fence was always painted a bright, clean shade of white every few weeks. It was like a house from the 50's, because it was. There was something charming about it. Wooden paneling, the porch with the backyard deck, grill, cozy little shack out back full of tools, and the lawnmower. I was allowed to rent this out for as long as I needed, so I could write a report about a murder. One that just so happened to have taken place in this very house. Back in the 60's, a couple lived here. They were crazy about each other, and about some of the neighbors as well. For over 2 decades, they poisoned, stabbed, and shot various other families. It was never clear why they did it, or what motivated them to do it in the first place. In the end, it was chalked up to pure insanity. A pair of psychopaths married together. They had a son and a daughter, but the grandparents had taken them out of the household after finding out about the first murder. They kept it quiet, of course. The house has been turned into a sort of museum and rental space over the past few years. It was closed off to the public for over 3 decades, but recently it opened back up for people to look at. Turns out that renting out and giving tours of a haunted house was profitable. Who'd have figured? Oh, I forgot to mention that it was haunted by the souls of the couple who killed those families back in the day. That was something I was having a hard time documenting in the report I was writing. I mean, come on. Haunted house? The hell is this? A horror novel? I was dead wrong about it, though. It all started one night when this one song started playing on the phonograph in the living room. It was Put Your Head on My Shoulder by Paul Anka. Can't get it out of my head. Played over and over every night. The nights would go the same way, over and over. I would go to bed around 10 p.m., and after that, the house would fall into an odd silence. The lights came on in the living room, and that song would just start playing all by itself. The movement of footsteps could be heard as they creaked against the hardwood floor. "Please, come out and join us. It's quite a fun night," a female voice would call out. "Come now, be our guest. Take a seat out here. We'll drink tea and listen to the radio," a male voice would soon follow up with the woman's voice. It's not safe to get up and check it out, despite their words of assurance. Doing so could bring unknown results. It may have been safe, but something in my body told me otherwise. I'd stay in bed until 6 a.m. That's the time that everything would fade away and turn to normal. The little dance and music would go on all night, but I would still be able to sleep. While dozing off, it seemed like the music would go silent despite still playing. I guess their only goal at first was to draw me out. It's been a few days of this before things took a step up. I've been hearing, I don't know quite how to put it, people. It's almost like a party's going on during the night hours. Again, I find that I cease to hear it once I fall asleep. Guess these little events are mere attempts at giving incentive for me to leave the room rather than to torture me. Although, every so often, they'll knock on the door and ask me to come out again. It only lasts a few seconds before the person walks away. They're real polite about it, though, and they don't stick around. They just ask and then vanish once they don't hear an answer. During the daytime, I've been logging this information into my report. Feels like I'm going insane a little. This can't be real, right? I must be breathing some kind of hallucinogenic gas or something. Got the vents checked, but nothing's wrong with them. They did need to be cleaned, though, so at least I had an excuse to get them worked on without looking like a crazy person. I never found a trace of this couple during the day. No shoes, no footprints, nothing moved. Nothing. Not a single goddamn thing out of place or touched. Hell, things seem slightly cleaner in the morning. Maybe the fact that I try to keep things as they were, though. I spend my days walking around the neighborhood. People living around here are mostly millennials, the ones who either inherited these houses and chose to rent them out or live in them instead of selling them, or renting them to cut down on certain parts of the mortgage. I drive into town and head to a coffee shop I like for a few hours. I leech off the free Wi-Fi so I can get my things done. There's free Wi-Fi at the house, but it's a gamble on the speed and the connection. I also like starting my day off with coffee and going about my hours to get a cake and a few sandwiches. It's now been 3 weeks and I think I'm almost done. I was given 4 weeks before the deadline to make a report on the house so the people I work for can get some info. They're not exactly well informed since most of the people have either died, killed themselves, or simply walked out after a few days. The only reason I've survived this long is that I've read every last bit of data I could find from both historical records and the half-assed papers people put together before throwing their badges to the side and working for another newspaper. I'm barely getting anything interesting so far, aside from the fever dream of a stay I'm getting from this place. These days, during the 3rd week, have been pretty weird. I wake up at the same time only to hear humming. Musical humming, not particular songs, just random notes. This is the wife humming while making some sort of breakfast. Her name's Rose, and her husband is Clark. Can't believe I've been referring to them as husband and wife all this time. It changes during the day, but it ranges from bacon and eggs to cereal and orange juice with toast to a full pancake breakfast sometimes. They got bigger and bigger each day. On day 1, I stayed in my room until the humming stopped. It only lasted about 15 to 20 minutes. After that, I would check the kitchen to find a freshly cooked breakfast. Rose wasn't anywhere in sight, though. I was hesitant to eat it at first, since I wasn't sure what would happen, but I was hungry that morning, and I didn't feel like making a drive to the city so early in the morning. Food was good. I didn't feel poisoned or anything afterwards. I would set the dishes in the sink and take a shower. Not even 15 minutes after getting out of the shower and getting dressed, the dishes were washed, dried, and sitting in the cupboard. I'm honestly not sure why people have been dying or quitting this trip. So far, I've stayed out of their way and never really messed with anything. I feel like a guest here, and act as one, which is probably the key. You can't live here, merely stay for a certain amount of time. I don't know how long that time frame is, though. Week 4, these last 7 days are my final chance to wrap this up before the deadline. I'm nowhere closer to finding out how these past journalists died, why this couple did what they did, or anything like that. The best I'm going to do is probably pump out a short guide on how not to die here. This week was the hardest. The haunting extended all day. You see, the morning would start out as normal as it had last week. Waking up, hearing the humming, waiting for it to stop, eating a little breakfast, putting the dishes in the sink, etc. The real difference is they're now visible and active, all day and night. Clark spends his days sitting on an armchair reading a newspaper. Funny detail is that the date on the newspaper follows our date, only the month and day, not the year. He's always dressed in a white dress shirt with the top button left undone. Simple, ironed black dress pants with a leather belt neatly wrapped around them. Brown leather shoes, more like loafers actually, I guess. Kind of dress shoes you just kind of slip on. They were always shined and cleaned. His right leg is on the floor with his left leg stretched out over the right. The newspaper covers his face. The only thing that could be seen from the other side was the occasional cigarette smoke puffing up. The cigarette never had a scent, though. Phantom tobacco, I guess. Pretty funny. Rose would be sitting on the couch most of the time, either knitting, reading a magazine, or watching the TV. It was a large black and white TV, the outside made of hardwood, the thick glass of the display, and the antenna sticking out of the top. Can't miss those two large dials on it either. There was always something different on TV. One moment it was a cooking show, the news, even a Western movie. The volume was always able to be heard, but sort of faint as well. Kind of like a sort of background noise you barely notice after a while. It was not a good idea to verbally or physically interact with them in any way. Not even looking at them was an option. I've never seen either of their faces outside of photos because I'm always staring at my phone or laptop, or even intentionally staring at the floor. The carpet was kind of pleasant to look at. They never spoke during the day. Rose would sometimes clean the house, sometimes dust, vacuum, even washing the dishes. I lied. I've caught small glimpses of their faces from reflections. They are in their young age for the 60s, the prime of their life, right before the major killing streak. I can't even explain any of this. This house could slowly be turning into a self-contained instance of time, but that wouldn't make sense since the Wi-Fi here works. My money is up to date and my tech can be charged. A few of the outlets have swapped out for modern ones. Only the ones not already connected to appliances or the TV itself. Breakfast, lunch, dinner would always appear on the table at different times of the day. Breakfast at 6 a.m., lunch at noon, dinner at 6 p.m. I would always eat in silence and put the dishes in the sink. I've tried rinsing the dishes before at least, but the water never touches them. I don't know how to explain it, but I would turn on the water and it would just phase through the dishware. I gave up after one day. Well, this is the final day. I'll be scheduling this report to send itself in a few hours. I don't even want to manually do it since I'm rinsing my hands of this whole worthless paper once I leave. There was one thing I wanted to check out, though. I'm gonna continue this bit on my phone. I always wanted to check out the basement. I forgot that it even existed this whole time. The door wasn't blocked or locked, luckily. The door just opened up, but the light bulb turned on for about a second before blowing out. It didn't actually explode or anything, but the light sort of just flashed and burned out like a flashbang. The steps are quite loud as they creak. I'm not sure what that smell is. Like a mixture of gas and rotten meat, maybe? The door just closed itself, the only light I have down here from my phone flashlight. There's some kind of red puddle leading to a room down here. I don't like it. I'm writing this live so my boss can read it. Yeah, I know, hard to believe I'm actually being productive. The puddle's blood. There's a body down here. No, wait. There's multiple bodies down here. I can see dozens or even hundreds of flies just covering these bodies. I think I recognize some of the badges around their neck. All of these bodies smell fresh. Is time frozen down here or something? Shoot! There's footsteps coming down here. I'm squeezed behind a broken down fridge. Maybe Clark will give up his search in a few minutes. My 911 alert just failed. This one message will probably be the last thing that'll automatically upload. I think I just made a horrible mistake. I wasn't supposed to come down here. If you're reading this, please call for connection lost. Report upload incoming. I recently got to rent out a house from the 60's. The house was famous because of a couple that used to live here from the 60's to the 80's. They were known for killing people and families during that time period before finally being caught by the police. These were the things I've learned during my stay in this house. During the first week, there will be dancing. From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., there will be activity in the living room. The couple will appear out there and dance to a song called Put Your Head on My Shoulder, along with a few others. They will assure you that it's fine if you come out and join them. Don't do it. I've never attempted, so I don't know if anything happens. But trust your gut. During week 2, they will be hosting a party. The sound of many people will come from the living room, as if people have come over for the evening. Every few hours, the door will knock as someone on the other side will invite you to join them. During week 3, the haunting will break into the day. During the morning, the wife will be in the kitchen, making breakfast. Do not leave your room until she's done. You can use the bathroom, but don't look or enter the kitchen. You will hear her hum for about 20 minutes. Once it stops, you can go about your day. Food's perfectly fine to eat and is actually encouraged. Make sure you put the dishes in the sink. During week 4, if you survive that long, they will roam the house 24/7. Do not make eye contact with either of them. They'll mainly stay in the living room. The husband sitting on the armchair reading a newspaper, the wife reading a magazine or knitting. Occasionally she'll clean the house. If you're going to be in the living room, keep your eyes low and do not verbally interact with them. If you do, I'm not sure. There have been reports of them killing people during this time. Acting hostile at them or trying to kill them will not end well. Many have rented this place out, and almost all of them have died. Some were filled with stab wounds. Some were in the tub, drowned. Others were framed as if it were a suicide. You may wonder why the government hasn't merely torn the house down. I'm not sure. Seems like the money they make from this place keeps it running longer. They will not force themselves into the room during the night. Unless you interact with them, they will not attack or come your way. Any food or snacks prepared is fully safe and encouraged to consume. Make sure you set the dishes and the silverware in the sink. They will be cleaned. Stay outside of the house. It's your best chance to live. Follow the rules. You might make it out alive.
You're still here. I thought you might be. Thanks for joining me for tonight's story. If your insatiable appetite for horror knows no bounds, might I suggest one of our playlists, or one of our previous stories in the archive? There should be one appearing at the end of the story any minute now. And of course, if you're not subscribed, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Maybe hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If you prefer your horror a little more analog, you can always pick up one of my books. There's a link below to my latest, and it'll take you to all the great things that I've posted on Amazon. For my book lovers in the audience, I always suggest coming on down to Patreon so you can become part of my ghostly reader tier and get a book anytime I write one, which is usually about twice a year. Speaking of my patrons, let's go ahead and thank them, shall we? Thanks to Unicorn Hollow for being our spooky ghost contributor. Thanks to Janet and Lady Vengeance for being our spooky skeleton tier contributors. Thanks to Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being our ghostly reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you think you might like to support the show in a more monetary fashion, come on down to Patreon. I have many tiers. I'm sure you'll find one that suits you best. I always recommend the Ghostly Reader tier, since you get a signed book anytime I write one on your doorstep. But I have many tiers, and again, I'm sure you'll find one to suit you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.